Hello everybody and welcome into my latest live broadcast. It's Valentine's Day, the 14th of February, 2022. My name is Kerry Holzman and thanks for joining me. Now, I want to cover a topic that I get frequently asked in the chat room. In fact, I'll be making ideally 3 or 4 more videos today as I don't want to cover all these different subjects in one video, and then when these common questions come back up, I can't remember what the video was where I talked about it. So I'll make a number of well-titled videos, and I'm going to try and get about 3 or 4 of them done today, and I'll try and do them all live. And we're going to start with this one. And the question is, what happens when somebody brings in a really, really old computer for repair? Now, for me as a self-employed business person, I'm always looking at opportunity to make the customer's experience better. And by that I mean, I'm not out to just sell them things they don't need or that I have extras of laying around and I want to get rid of it. What I'm thinking of is how can we help the customer in a way that sets them up better than they were when they came in. So if we're talking about just doing a repair, can we upgrade it? Can we add more RAM? Is there something else we can do while we're in there doing the repair that makes the computer more valuable or more useful to the end user? Because if we just repair it, it's not any better than it was when it was working. So is there any way to turn these lemons into lemonade? So when this customer said they had an old computer from 2009, it stopped working, and they're talking to me about a new computer. I said, well, let me see your old computer first. And they said, well, what's the point? I said, well, I might be able to save you some money, and I'd also like to diagnose it myself. Where did you have it diagnosed? And he had it diagnosed at a local computer shop. And I said, well, these computer shops, you know, they have good days and bad days when it comes to diagnosis. I'd like to just diagnose it myself. He says, okay. So he brings it to me, and that's what this box is here. You see, I've got it ripped apart. He had a ton of fans in here, which I've taken out a lot of these fans. And it's a triple channel, like an X58 chipset. It's an i7-950, I think is what it is. And my machine from back in the day was an i7-965. It's the same family of chip. His was a little lower tier. But, you know, for what he paid for that CPU, he could probably get a whole computer today. So the reason I wanted to look at it is I wanted to see if maybe we can reuse the case. Now that I've seen it, absolutely, we can reuse the case. We can reuse the power supply. It's got a nice Thermaltake Tough Power 875 watt modular power supply in there. We can reuse the optical drive if he wants it. And it looks like he's got a mechanical drive in here, which my preference would be to not use at all, because it'll just slow down the whole, whatever we put in there, right? We want to go NVMe or SATA solid state, because these mechanical drives are just painfully slow. And from glancing at it, it doesn't look like it's a very large capacity, but I haven't looked. This says it is a Hitachi from 2010, so it's quite old, and its capacity is just 1 terabyte. So I would recommend leaving this out or not hooking it up, and instead, if he's got data on there that he needs, that we would plug it into an external drive toaster or docking bay. And so my proposal for this customer would be to put in basically the $800 build, which would be 9th gen, 10th gen, 11th gen, or 12th gen. Right now, the best bang for the buck, I think, is 11th gen, especially if you go with like an 11600K on a B560 board. It's a good deal. That's DDR3 RAM, triple channel memory. We'll have to replace the RAM, the chip. This cooler stinks. I really don't like it. He had a fan on each side of this, and I'm not quite sure what caused this problem, but he removed a couple of programs, did some cleanup software-wise, and then the machine wouldn't start anymore. And so what it does, and I verified that the diagnosis from the computer store was correct. There does seem to be a bad motherboard here. What happens is when you apply power to the board and you hit the power button, one of the diagnostic LEDs that's down in the bottom left corner of the board, it comes on, and then it goes off. There should be like, I think there's 4 of them that blink around. But anyway, it's supposed to do something more than just come on and go off. The fans never turn. And apart from that LED on the motherboard coming on, it acts like it's unplugged. It does not react to the power on. And it's old anyway, and it should be replaced. But I just really wanted to see it for myself. In all likelihood, the RAM is fine. The power supply is fine. I tried a different power supply. All the drives were disconnected, and all power was disconnected except for the motherboard to make sure that none of the components were shorting out and causing the problem. So my proposition is, let's put I'm trying to think, which chip do I have? Do I have the 11th chip or 10th chip? I got a bunch of these i5 11600Ks with a B560 HD3 motherboard. So $100 for the motherboard. We put in a 1 terabyte Intel 660p for $100. We'll put on a Scythe Mugen 5 cooler for $60, so that's what, $260? 32 gigs of RAM for $100, so we're at $360. The chip itself, I think, is around $250. So we're right in around the $500 ballpark. If we reuse the power supply and reuse this case, he's just saved himself a lot of money. And he's basically going to get a $1,000 computer, because I don't charge any labor, for nearly half price by recycling his old parts, if he wants to do that. And I don't see why you wouldn't want to. It's a decent case. I had to take the top off of it because he had a fan on the top, he has a fan on the back, he has a fan on the front. I would take this fan off as well. These fans were really bad. They were hardwired to the power supply, running full speed all the time. Even the CPU fan has a little potentiometer to speed it up and slow down the fan, which doesn't make any sense. If it had a 3-pin fan connector, then you should be letting the motherboard control the speed of those fans. So I disagree with the part selection that was used all those years ago. He built it himself. It looks like he did a good job. And he's got a graphics card that we can reuse. And I think this is like a 660, which, in a couple years ago you'd laugh, but now you're like, oh, that lucky, that lucky guy. I think this is an NVIDIA GTX. It's a Gigabyte N660OC, so overclocked 660 graphics card with the twin axial fans there, wind force. I'm sure this is probably fine, so we can reuse that as well. So if he wants to use it for gaming, you can play whatever games he was playing before. And if he ever wants to upgrade the graphics card, his power supply at 875 watts, it's got some cool diagnostic LEDs on the side of the power supply, which I've never seen before. That's probably a $100 power supply in there. So anyway, that's, when somebody says, look, the computer's too old, let's not waste our time, the question becomes, can you convince the customer that rather than sinking money into a computer that isn't going to be worth whatever you're sinking into it, if it costs you $200 to upgrade it, your computer's not worth $200 more than it was before. But if we can put $200 in towards a newer machine, it's going to be so much faster, quieter, and much easier to upgrade in the future, since, if you wanted to upgrade RAM in this, yes, you can still get DDR3 today. However, you're certainly never going to run Windows 11 on that. So, and before too long, now that DDR5 is out, it's just a matter of time before the DDR3 just isn't carried by retailers, because it isn't going to move, and you don't want it taking up valuable warehouse space. So that's a ticking, nightmare waiting to occur. If somebody were able to make this run again, it would actually be worse than replacing it, in my opinion, because the maintenance on it and reliability of it are nothing compared to putting something more modern into it. So I'm always looking for a way to just kind of see an opportunity where others might feel sad. Oh, my computer's broken, it doesn't work, I have to buy a new one. Maybe not. Maybe we can, because this is modular, because this wasn't a pre-built machine, from one of the big, Dell or HP manufacturers, which many times you cannot replace components in a lot of those, especially the cheaper it is. So you can go and buy a $300 or $400 computer, that's completely disposable. And when it breaks, go buy another $300 or $400 computer. And when it breaks, go buy another $300 or $400. It's a vicious cycle. It never ends. With this, because he built it himself, he was able to get nearly 12 years out of it. And even at the end of its life, we can repurpose the power supply, the case, the optical drive, and just slap in a new board, CPU, RAM, and storage. He's up and running with the same as having a brand new computer. So then the customers generally are excited. They're like, oh man, wish this would have happened a couple years ago. So I still have to talk to this customer now that I've evaluated it. Let me bring the board up and I'll show you what the board looks like. Bring it up here to the camera. This is an Asus, what does it say, P6X580 Premium. And you can see the chip, which is upside down. I guess I got to turn the board the other way. Let's see if we can read that chip. Triple channel memory. The board looks fantastic. I don't know why it won't power on, but like I said, I think that's a blessing in disguise. A lot of times people don't replace things because it works. But I have to tell you, ignorance is bliss. When it comes to how fast technology is evolving, you don't know what you're missing. My father wouldn't give up his regular CRT monitor on his computer because it worked. I said, yeah, but the screen it's bent, so everything's a little distorted. The colors aren't very sharp. The picture quality is not very good. I don't know what you're talking about, son. So anyway, he ends up finding a good deal on a flat screen computer monitor, an LCD flat screen computer monitor, hooks it up, and he's like, wow, that's so much nicer to look at. It's vivid and it's bright. It's got great color clarity, and I'm not getting the eye strain that I was getting before. I said, that's why you don't have this waiting for it to die before you replace it. I mean, I understand, especially if you grew up without any money, how important it was to make things last. But I recently put a new stove in here at Studio B, and it's an electric stove that's convection. I've never had a convection oven. That was always a fancy oven, the way I grew up. And the electric burners shut themselves off in order to maintain a temperature. I'm so accustomed, like if you work with gas and you turn on the gas burner and you put your pot onto the gas burner, the pan is just going to get hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter. The temperature just keeps rising until you go and turn that knob down, and you have to control that. You have to keep an eye on it. With these new electric ranges now, if you set that dial to, let's say, 6, you'll see the burner come on, and it reaches whatever temperature setting 6 is, and then the burner automatically shuts off while you're cooking, and then comes back on again, just like an oven. So if you were cooking something in the oven and you set the temperature to 425 degrees, then that oven clicks off at 425, and when it gets a certain level below 425, it clicks back on again. Well, these burners do the same thing. And the convection oven is really neat because I used to spin food around halfway through the cooking time in order for it to get evenly cooked. That's just the way ovens are. But with a convection oven, I'm learning, everything cooks evenly, and rotating it doesn't seem to make any difference at all. There's an even treatment of heat across the left rear of the oven to the right front of the oven. Everything cooks the same. And because it's electric and because it has the convection option, then the latest trend is air frying. And so the oven has the air fry button. The older oven took longer to heat up, took forever to boil a pot of water with an electric top, and I'm sure was nowhere near as energy efficient as the new one. So now it's costing less to operate, food comes out better, and in that case, one of the burners on the old stove wasn't working. But I rarely used more than 2 burners at a time, and I just lived with it. But now, all the food is cooking better. It's more evenly cooked, and I don't have to constantly monitor the temperature of the pan or the pot that's sitting on top of the burner, because it's turning itself off and back on again to maintain wherever I set it on the dial. So the dial doesn't give me a temperature, right? The dial just says 1 through 10 or whatever, and you know, halfway is 5. So if I set it to 5, it maintains whatever that temperature value is. If I wait until something stops working and then I replace it, then I'm missing out on the conveniences of life. And you know, you only live once. I'm not considering, you know, going and buying a $4,000 stove. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm also not buying the cheapest thing available. I'm trying to find, you know, somewhere that's a good deal for all the bells, whistles, and features that it has. So not only am I getting rid of a stove that doesn't work, I'm getting one that was better. So I'm taking the lemons, turning it into lemonade. You know, turning a woe is me, I got to replace my stove, to, oh, I can't wait till I get to cook on the new stove and try the convection and try the air fry. And yeah, so if I had known all of this, I probably would have done it a year ago. But same holds true with computers and technology and cars. You know, if you hold on to an old car, you're missing all the technology that new cars have to offer, including ride quality, gas mileage, horsepower, not to mention having a warranty for peace of mind. So that's the way I present these opportunities to my customers, rather than, I got bad news for you, you need to replace your system. It's like, I got good news. Good news, bad news. The bad news is the board's bad. The good news is the system is obsolete and was well due for replacement 5 years ago. However, this is a great opportunity to put yourself into something modern that's going to be better than this ever was, at a fraction of the cost of whatever this cost this person back in 2009. So that's all perspective. It's just how we look at the world. And we can really make it work for you if you're in business where you're not, you know, being the salesman, but you're actually sincere, like, hey, I'm not suggesting putting this, you know, 12900K in here and a 3090 graphics card. I wouldn't make that suggestion. But I also wouldn't say, don't even bring in your old computer, because the whole point of it is, might be able to save you some money by looking at your old computer and seeing if we can repurpose anything. And like I said, that power supply is probably $100 easy. So that adds up. You know, cases, probably worth $100 if I had to buy a new case. DVD drive, they're $20 all day long. That's neither here nor there. But that is, for me, a great way to mix it up. For me, in my daily routine, I do a lot of computer builds, and it starts to get a little boring, and it's the same old thing over and over. And I like being presented with a challenge like this, where I'm introduced to a situation, and a lot of people would say, don't even mess with it, send it to the recycle bin and start over. No, I think it's, again, the benefit of building your own computer is exactly this scenario that you get, that others that buy pre-builts, for the most part, don't have this option. Let me look through the chat and see what I've been missing here. Let me see what's going on in the chat room. Peter Laycock kicked us off with a 50-pound contribution, as always. Thank you, Peter. I see Rick Lakes has joined us, and Lana Dro, and who else we got in here? Chris L. Welcome in, guys. There's William Dawson and Jim KJ3N. And a couple other contributions that come in. Joshua Mattingly contributes $10. Says, good afternoon, Mr. Kerry Holzman. Thank you very much for all you do. Great tips that you are sharing for reusing and refurbing old computers. Well, thank you, Joshua. Thanks for supporting the channel here. XRod666 with $10 says, it's nice to see you on this Monday. I am so backed up with work, so I'm going to try and get a couple short videos done today, this being number one. of about 4 I need to get done. We'll see how many I get through. And there's Bill Leatherland joining us. Hey, Bill. If anybody's got any questions for me, any technical questions, feel free to ask. Hey, there's my friend Ron Hilliard. Hi, Ron. Hope you're doing well. Yes, if you have any technical questions, please ask it in the chat room. I'll do my best to provide you an answer or provide you some advice on where to find the answer. And all the computers that I offered for sale, those are all either sold or on hold. There's a couple people that are waiting for tax refunds that they've asked me if I've hold them. So there's a white computer build here I did a couple weeks ago, and that one's gone. There's the one we did Friday. Somebody's asked me to hold that, and then the others have been sold. However, I still have a lot of parts here, and if there is a build you're interested in and you are in the United States, reach out to me. I sell the computers at cost. I don't make any money putting them together, doing the cable management, installing and configuring and updating the operating system. That all gets done for free. What I get out of it is the video content. And while each video doesn't make much money, having a ton of videos that don't make much money starts to add up to some okay money. Still not my Tesla money yet, but we're going to work on it. The more content I have, obviously, if every video makes a penny every day, and you have 10 videos, at the end of the month, you don't even have enough to cover the electricity of what it costs you to make the videos. But if you've got 140,000 videos, each making a penny a day, by the end of the month, you're probably doing pretty good. So that's kind of the way I look at it. It's all about just having the variety of the content and giving people a really good deal. So you'll have to reach out to me at my email, Kerry@kerryholzman.com, if that's something you're interested in. Or if you have a machine you want sent in for repair, reach out to me. I'm starting to accept more machines for repair until I get bogged down again. Sometimes I get bogged down. I have to sort of stop any incoming work, any new incoming work, and catch up with what I've committed to. So I'm just about caught up, and if you want to take me up on that, reach out to me in an email. I'll make another video for the giveaways that's going to be its own separate video because there's too much confusion about the people that are most interested, or the people that would want to nominate themselves weren't aware that we're doing it because it's in a 3-hour-long video that we talk about it. So I'll make a dedicated video for that as well. So let me just look through the chat here and see what questions, if any, you guys have for me. Where one contributes €2. He says, Happy Valentine's Day, Kerry and others. Thank you. Happy Valentine's Day to you. Rick Rubicet with €5 says, time for a small contribution. Going to build my third PC this weekend, and he will upload the filming of the build. That's awesome. Make sure you upload it to YouTube and share the link for us. Randy Reed wants to know, what do you do when a computer freezes up? The first thing you want to do is restart the computer. I think that goes without saying. If there is a blue screen of an error, take a picture of that with your phone. Make sure it's not blurred out. Hold the phone steady. Usually the affecting file or the stop code is listed on the bottom left side of the blue screen. If it's a complete freeze with no blue screen, then what I would do is power the whole thing off and remove a RAM module. If you have numerous RAM modules, take them all out but one, and then restart the computer and see if it freezes. Now, that's assuming it's frozen more than once. Sometimes a computer freezes. It can happen. So don't panic. But if it's happening with any sort of regularity, then I would recommend you take all the RAM out but one stick and then see if you can get it to freeze in the same amount of time it would normally, you have to determine that because it's an intermittent problem. So only you know how often it happens. Is it happening once a day, once every 3 days? So you got to wait that out and see if that makes any difference. If you want to, for fun, you can download and run memtest86 In most cases, what you're experiencing is caused either by a bad driver or it's caused by bad RAM, most of the time. Theoretically, any single piece of hardware could be the culprit. It could be motherboard, it could be your keyboard, could be your mouse, could be a Wi-Fi adapter or a network driver. It could be literally anything plugged into the motherboard. But statistically, in my experience, what you're describing is usually just a one-off and it doesn't happen ever again. Or if it's happening regularly, it's usually RAM related, usually. So I hope that helps. Whoops, probably should keep my microphone right there. Let's see if there's any other technical questions. What's your opinion about using liquid metal thermal paste? A fool and his money are soon parted. It is a complete and utter waste of money. Unless you're an extreme overclocker, and this isn't the channel for you if you are, because we're here trying to help beginners and encourage people to take over more control of their computer, which a lot of people find intimidating. They find the language of computer jargon to be intimidating. You got to be somebody smart to understand that. You don't. So basically, for me, any thermal paste is fine. But to use liquid metal, you're actually doing yourself a very big disservice if it's a computer you're planning to own more than a couple years, because it oxidizes and it becomes worse than regular thermal compound in time. So again, there's a lot of enthusiasts here on YouTube that do extraordinarily financially impractical things. And if that's something you want to pursue, don't let me get in your way, but I wouldn't encourage anybody to do that. That's an extreme hobbyist activity, exclusively. Fly Guy 23, there he is. I haven't seen Fly Guy 23 in a long time. Rick Rubicet contributes €5, says, Catherine Anna Hauserman, I'm going to build it this Saturday. Oh, he's talking to Catherine. Then he says, Carrie, I will share it on YouTube, just like my second build on my channel. Well, there you go, folks. You can click on Rick Rubicet's name to go to his channel and subscribe to him so you can watch his new build. Right on. A. Wait says, my PC's making a loud noise that sounds like a fan. Usually it is a fan. Sometimes it stops on its own or I have to shut it down. It's over 10 years old. The older the computer is, the more problems you'll experience more often. But when it's making the sound, you can easily put your finger on, when the fans are on and running, put your finger on it just from, in the center so you don't hurt yourself. And see if the sound goes away. And you can touch each fan in the center and stop it. And you'll know instantly if the sound goes away, which fan is to blame. So that's an easy thing to diagnose. Remember, there is a fan in your power supply, and if you have a graphics card, you probably have fans there. Those, you don't want to necessarily stop the power supply fan, but you should be able to identify where the sound is coming from when you have the side panel off, and find the fan that's bad. It is always going to be a fan because you probably don't have any other moving parts in a modern computer, especially if you're running a solid state drive. Otherwise, if you have a mechanical drive, it could be that's causing noise too. Thank you for the question. John Studley with a 2-pound contribution says, have a Coke on me, Carrie. Right on, John, thank you. Let's take a look at any other questions I might have missed here. If you've asked and I haven't read your question, it's already scrolled off the screen, so please ask it again. Luke Greenia says, I'm still loving my Musatex build Carrie and Mitch did for me. Love it. I do think it's a little bit of disservice to the community that content creators that are enthusiasts, that are doing extreme and financially impractical things, are not required to have a disclaimer, which I think they should have, that just says this video is for entertainment purposes only. I very much wish that it was clearer to the viewer if they were watching actual work or people playing. Nothing wrong with either situation, but sometimes the lines get blurred on this stuff. And it leads to beginners or people just sort of starting to gain an interest. It sends them down a path of, well, it's nothing you're going to do in a career, right? If you enjoy your computer and you're like, gee, I love to work with computers for a living, 90% of the content that exists about computers here on YouTube is nothing you would ever get paid for to do as a real computer technician. Sometimes people think real computer techs only deal with consumers, but it's the opposite. In my opinion, real computer techs work in corporate America. They work for banks. They work for manufacturers. When you're driving your car and you see all those signs for all those businesses and the billboards, and if you go downtown, you see all the big high rises. Those are where the real technicians work. So keeping in your own little bubble of residential life is fine if you want to do that, but it doesn't necessarily reflect the true potential of financial opportunity that exists to be a computer technician. And none of that will involve liquid metal or liquid cooling or overclocking. It would be very unusual and very rare to encounter a corporation that would pay you to do such work. Most of the time, time is money. So if you're at a grocery store and you have gathered all of your food and items, you want to go and pay for it, you go to the cashier and there's a big line, how do you feel as a consumer? Okay, you're there, you've got all these groceries, maybe you've got some frozen food that's going to be melting if you don't get it home soon. And there is a big line to check out. How do you feel? What if, and this has happened to me a few times, I'm at the Walmart and it's close to midnight and they announce we're going to be shutting our systems down for the end of day processing and they'll be down for 20 minutes. So if you want to check out now, or you won't be able to check out until we're done because all the computers are going down. How does that make you feel as a consumer? So you go to check out because you don't want to wait another 20 minutes and there's huge lines of people that are thinking just like you, I want to get out of here. When computer systems go down and a business is unable to provide the service to their customer, and I don't care if it's somebody you're talking to over the phone, they're using a computer to answer your questions if you're calling a business. If you're looking to buy a new car, if you are looking to go to the grocery store, if you're looking to shop at a website and the site says, sorry, we're unavailable right now, you can't make any purchases. How does that make you feel as a consumer? And who's the person that's going to bring it back up and running? It's, in most cases, it's going to be the tech. That's not their job is not only to make sure that system is up and running, but to maintain it so that it's unlikely to go down during business hours where money is lost. So as upset as you might be at the inconvenience of a long line to check out with your groceries, every single time a customer abandons their cart and goes to shop somewhere else because they're tired of waiting, that's pressure on the IT guy to get that system back up and running now. So you don't see it as a consumer. You don't see the IT people. But without the IT people, most of anything you spend money on would be unable to get processed in an efficient manner to get you your item much, much faster than the old school ways we used to do things. You know, everything's happening much faster now. So it might have taken a day. I got to go to the car dealer. I'm going to be there all day. You can order a car online, and with the click of a couple of buttons of your mouse, have the car you want, the color you want, and they'll deliver it to your door. Then it might take you 20 minutes of your time. You still have the rest of your day to do other things. That wouldn't be possible without the computers. And somebody has to know how to fix these computers. And it really isn't represented well here on YouTube. It seems to be all about the enthusiast. And it's well oversaturated with enthusiast activity, and it leads to enthusiast questions that it's important for me to point out. As no part of my career have I ever had to overclock or use a special kind of thermal compound or do any custom liquid cooling. Never. And let's say a customer ordered that from me. It would take so much labor to build that versus having one business call and say, I need 12 computers next week. I'd rather build 12 regular computers and sell them, knowing that that customer is going to call me when they need 12 more. As their business grows, my business grows, because they need more systems, they need more maintenance. Home users, there's just no money in it, because when I initially started my business, I dealt exclusively with home users. And at one point I had over 450 home users as customers and was in debt because I was living off credit cards and I wasn't making enough money. The calls were too inconsistent with consumers, and the consumers were likely to give you a sob story about why they can't pay you, even though they're the ones who initiated the request for help. Consumers may not pay you on time, and you may not hear from that consumer for a year or two. So you have to have a lot of consumers if you want to do residential work. So there was never, ever a lot of money in residential work. It really wasn't. The stable income that's sustainable and something that you can grow and continue to make more money has always been in business. You don't have to drive all over your city or even the outskirts of the city for every single customer that calls you. Instead, you go to one business and they'll have 12, 100, 200, 300 computers, and you'll just keep going back to that same business. And it's so much more of a pleasure because they know what to expect from you, you know what to expect from them. They're going to have ongoing regular work for you, and they're relying on you so that their employees who are on the clock can actually be productive. And that means their customers get helped. And that means it's good for their business, which means it's good for your business. This whole thing doesn't exist with consumers. Consumers are very fickle. One minute they have money, one minute they don't. They'll buy stupid things and then want you to make these stupid things work because they can't figure it out when it was something that they didn't even need to have anyway. That's extraordinarily time consuming, but they don't want to pay you what your time is worth. These are not issues you'll have, generally speaking, in the business world. So what people want to do at home with their computer is their business. I don't really care. But so many of them create YouTube videos that it would leave you under the impression, if you didn't know any better, that they were computer techs. But they're not computer techs. They're hobbyists. Computer techs are, by very definition, a professional is somebody who gets paid to do a job for somebody else. And you're an expert if you've been paid as a professional for 7 or 8 years. I think that's how the U.S. court system determines if you're an expert witness. And one is not better than the other. Whether you want to be a hobbyist or you want to be a professional, in either case, just be aware of the source of material that you're watching. Is what you're watching coming from somebody who has accountability, liability, responsibility? Or is it coming from somebody who has no liability, no accountability, and is just messing around biding their time? And understand that when you're watching it, that what they're doing may not apply to you. Or, vice versa. What I'm doing may not apply to you. But I feel like this is critically important to represent real computer tech work where you're paid by customers and held accountable and responsible for the work you do. Because there's no consequences for hobbyists, right? They can spend all the money they want. They can put themselves in debt. They can buy extraordinary, pointless hardware to brag, to show off, whatever their reasons are to do it. That doesn't mean it's a smart investment or a wise thing to do. And that's their business. I'm not going to tell them not to, but do understand what you're watching. That's all I'm saying. Because it does lead to a lot of bizarre, what I think are bizarre questions that come from people who, well, why do you say this doesn't matter and they say it does? Well, I don't know. Who are they? Are they professionals? Are they paid by customers to do work? Or are they just content creators? And what's their motivation? Are they looking to sell a product? Are they looking to just appease their ego? Are they just, maybe they're absolutely apathetic and there's no reason they're doing anything other than because they're bored. I don't know the answers to that. So I can tell you that when you're hearing from a professional in any industry, I just think that that advice should be heavily considered. And I think if you talk to more enthusiasts and more professionals, you'll start to see a pattern evolve of people who have no consequences being a bit more impractical, and the people who do have consequences being more pragmatic and more concerned about value and investment than they are about collecting. So, in any event, just food for thought. I love what I do. I love being able to take a business that's down and bring them back up again. I can't express to you what that feels like, but it's almost like putting out a fire, I imagine. And then, they didn't lose the whole building, right? They had some downtime, it cost them money. If you look at any business, you walk into a real estate office, you'll see employees sitting at desks working on computers. Computers aren't going anywhere. When they buy new computers have to be set up. When the current computers break, they have to be fixed. There needs to be backups, there needs to be security. There's a lot of money in being a computer tech, especially when we're talking about for businesses. But if that real estate office, let's say their server goes down, they can't sell any homes, they can't finalize the paperwork for closing escrow on places. Each house is somewhere between $250,000 to over $5 million, and none of those transactions can be completed until the system's back up and running. These are the videos I want to see on YouTube, not the stuff where people just play with no consequences. But just keep in mind the source of the content so you can better understand whether or not that's something that would apply to you. Jason Wyrick says, I've worked at schools, banks, businesses, courthouses, and I've had 0 executives ask me about spending money because they want their system overclocked. Yeah, or Windows 11. Why are we all a lot of questions about Windows 11, but why? And I've yet to meet anybody who's been able to give me a valid concern that would apply to the average individual of why they should go to Windows 11 right now. In the future, I could see why, but today it's such a very niche couple of things that Windows 11 offers. I've never met a customer ever in my life that uses those features or needed those features. And those people apparently just don't call for service. And there aren't very many of them, I can tell you, because I am super, super busy with work. So, if somebody wants these virtual machines or they want, the encryption, the TPM, they could have done all that in Windows 10 if they wanted to, and they probably were already. So it's more difficult to walk up to a customer and say, we should upgrade all the office computers to Windows 11, and then we're going to need to retrain staff and potentially replace some software or hardware that might have an issue. And then the business owner says, what's all this going to cost? Well, there's my time. The Windows upgrade is free. We might have to replace a few computers that aren't compatible. And then we have to train the employees on how to use it. And then any hardware or software we have to replace. So, it's hard to say, but probably somewhere between $2,000 and $20,000. The next question you will be asked as a professional, which is often not mentioned in any enthusiast channel, is what's my return on investment? And by that, they want to know that if I'm going to give you $20,000 to upgrade my office for my employees and train my employees to get them up to speed on the new operating system and how things have moved around and, replacing whatever we have to replace, what will we be? The business owner wants to know, how's that going to make me more money? There's a lot of things a business can invest in besides computers. They can invest in new office chairs or new office desks. They can invest in advertising. The list goes on and on and on, all of which has a payback, right? Ergonomics certainly can add to productivity. An employee that's comfortable and isn't getting sore is more productive in theory. You're avoiding employees calling out because of lower back problems or getting carpal tunnel syndrome. If you get the right kind of equipment in the right ergonomic setting, those investments make sense over the long term. If we're talking about the operating system, and I cannot explain to the customer any benefit that would justify this expense, what am I doing? I'm being brainwashed because I watched some YouTube videos from enthusiasts who are saying how great it is, but they don't hold any consequences. So wouldn't life be great if there were just no consequences? I just want to live my life without consequences. Sounds kind of boring, but that's the battle I'm constantly fighting, is standing up for real technicians who actually work for a living, and get paid to fix, repair, upgrade computers, and are held accountable and liable for the work they do, including a ransomware attack. Imagine what my liability is if one of my clients gets all their data encrypted and their office is forcibly shut down because an employee clicked on a link they weren't supposed to. Imagine the liability that puts me under if I don't have a backup and it's my job to fix the problem. That's what they pay me for. And I'm expected to do it ASAP now. Business is down. If the business burns down, if the business gets broken into and they steal everything out of the office, if the sprinkler system comes on and floods all the electronic equipment and the servers are all dead, where's their data? Consequences. These are serious, dire consequences that can lead to lawsuits and shuttering of a company's doors. So when I tell you things get really serious, that's also why the job pays well, because you're taking on responsibility. There is no responsibility on YouTube. Anybody can make a video about anything. That's why you get these dumb challenges, from eating Tide Pods to whatever ridiculous, stupid thing. These people have nothing else better to do, and they're not held accountable for the damage they cause others. So at the end of the day, it's your choice if you want to follow some stupid challenge. Nobody's making you do it. But I just want you to be aware of the source of the content you're watching and what motivates that person to make their content. Are they just making content to make money? Are they just making content because they want to share their love of a certain area of computers? Or are they somebody who's trying to let you know that if this is a career you want to pursue, this is more realistically what kind of work you're going to be doing, and that this nonsense about computers going away is so disconnected from reality, it sounds like somebody's never had a job. Because no matter what job you have today, you will be using a computer. You will likely not be using a tablet or a phone. You will be using a computer in most corporate jobs. And the more employees a corporation has, the more computers they need. If the corporation gets bigger, they need more computers, they need more IT work. They have more data that has to get backed up. It has to get backed up off-site. It's got to be secured. It's got to be locked down. They need antivirus. And they need the systems performing well. We can't sit there and, how many times have you talked to somebody on the phone and the person on the other end of the phone says, oh, I'm sorry, just a minute, our computers are running really slow today. And you're both just sitting, staring at the wall on each end of the phone, waiting for the computer to come back with an answer. In the meantime, other people are on hold waiting for their turn. So it's not even enough the computer's running. You've got to keep the computers running fast and keep the employees productive and keep the customers from getting pissed off. It's a very rewarding career, even though it's often thankless. If you're able to get that paycheck, that's your thanks. and the work never stops. There's always something. I am busier now than I have ever been in my entire career. There are more computers now than there have been ever in the history of mankind. So if it's something you're considering for a career, realistically, it's a good career to get into. And any discussion of computers going away is purely consumer talk. And there was never money with consumers, ever. So who cares? Daco says the stress could be overwhelming. Well, that's true of any job, for sure. And also how you're treated. But you have to learn to deal with stress. That's just part of becoming an adult. It's accepting the responsibility. The more responsibility you take on in your career, the more money you get paid. That's why a manager or a supervisor gets paid more than the people below them. Even though they're not doing as much of the work, they're taking on more responsibility, and they're sort of organizing things, organizing teams that everybody's on the same page, and they make significantly more money because of that responsibility. And the higher up you go, up to the board of directors, they make crazy amounts of money, but they're ultimately responsible for all the decisions of policies and procedures and the operations of what the business is selling and what they're selling it for. It is an enormous responsibility, because if they make the wrong decisions and it costs the shareholders money, the shareholders are going to demand answers, not the least of which will be replacing the people that made these decisions that caused the shareholders so much money. There are consequences. And the more money you're making, the more stress you have. You generally are not going to make a lot of money and be stress-free. So maybe you're somebody who just doesn't. You might be somebody who would rather have a mediocre lifestyle that's stress-free than to have nice things and a big house and a nice new car and have everything under warranty, and you don't have to tear everything down yourself and fix everything yourself. And you can focus on your job that pays you so well, the regular check that comes in, and go on vacation and travel the world and come back and get back to work. And it's all a big trade-off. And in general, the more money you make, the more stress you'll have. And that's true of any career. Raj wants to know, how do you deal with holidays as you are working on your own? There's no real rule to how I handle holidays. Some days I'm not going anywhere. And I'm like, hey, I'll just make a video today. If a customer calls me on a major holiday, generally speaking, I won't answer the phone. But it depends who the customer is. I have customers on retainer, and they can call me anytime 24/7. That's a regular check coming in every month for me to be available to them at any time when they need me. That's how I set up my retainer. And if they don't want to pay the retainer, if they just want to call me reactively when there's a problem, I won't take the call, and I may not take the job because I don't need that stress. By the time I get the phone call that something's bad and they've not had any maintenance from me in forever, there's probably a lot of work that needs to be done. Windows updates, drivers updates, general hard disk cleanups, BIOS updates. And if you've got even a small office with 12, 13 computers, that's a full day's job. Full day's job. Update their antivirus, scan it for viruses, make sure the backups are updated. And then once all that's done, then it's like, okay, now let's fix your problem. But we have to get everything up to speed first, or you're working backwards. And that's going to take you much, much longer. Christoph says, are we going to look at the motherboard, or did you just verify it's dead? Yeah, I verified it's dead. Basically, there's nothing to see. When I plug power onto this board, there's a little diagnostic LED that turns red. It comes on and it goes off. That's it. And if you hit the power button, it doesn't do anything else. That's all it does. So the fans don't turn, the board doesn't beep. The motherboard battery, the CMOS battery, was dead, and I changed it thinking, well, maybe that's what's causing it, but no. It seems like it's some kind of a fuse that went out, some sort of something that's preventing the power from moving forward beyond a certain point in the circuit. It's not worth fixing, and there's really nothing to see. If I were to turn it on, it would behave exactly the way it's behaving now, except there'd be just a little red LED that comes on and then it goes off. And then in order to see that red LED come on and off again, I have to flip the switch off on the power supply, wait a second, turn it back on, then I can hit the power button again, and then that red LED will come on and then go off, and that's all she wrote. So whatever it is dead. And it seems to me that it's the motherboard. It's pretty rare to see a bad CPU, and I've taken all the RAM out and I've taken every component off of the board except for the CPU and power, and it doesn't behave any differently. It's just dead. So I'll be talking to the customer. I'd like to put him into an i5-11600K with a Mugen 5, 16 or 32 gigs of RAM. I would recommend 32, and a 1 terabyte Intel NVMe solid state M.2 drive. And we can do that for about $550 as long as we're reusing the case, the power supply, and the optical drive. It's going to save the customer, $300. Any other questions, or we'll wrap this video up. This is, as I mentioned, the customer's case. Customer built it himself back in around 2009. Zero Course says, what do you think of tech deals telling everyone that you can't game on anything lower than an i7-12700K? I don't know the context in which that's said, right? Because there's plenty of games that will run, what did you run games on before the 12th gen existed? It depends on the game. That may be very true of certain games. But just in general, just saying games, I mean, you could be playing solitaire. Who cares? Minesweeper. It would depend on the game. Wilmer says, Carrie, I've got a Gigabyte B460 HD3 motherboard with USB 3.2 Gen 1. If I add a USB card with USB 3.2 Gen 2 and the PCIe by 16 slot, will that give me faster speed, or is that set in stone by the chipset? Wilmer, the speed of USB is dictated by a couple of factors. One is, of course, what type of USB you have, 3.1 versus 3.2, Gen 1 versus Gen 2. But it's also affected by what you're plugging into it. This is a solid state flash drive that Orico sells that will run at USB 3.2 speeds in a USB 3.2 slot for a couple hundred gigs, and then it heats up and it moves slower than USB 2. It has nothing to do with the USB channel or the type of USB. And I've seen other flash drives advertised as USB 3.1 that run at USB 2 speeds. Your slots on the motherboard don't dictate how fast you go. The slots on the motherboard dictate how many channels the data has to path. The data paths the data has. So if you're on a freeway and the freeway has 16 lanes, you can move a lot more traffic through that freeway. But if nobody's on the freeway, what difference does it make? It only makes a difference if the freeway's crowded, if those lanes are being used. Generally speaking, a USB add-in card would plug into a USB, a PCIe by 1 slot. It'll have a small connector. And even if you plug it into a larger slot, and it's designed, it will fit in there. You can't use any of the other lanes. So if it's a by 1 slot and you put it in, if it's a USB card and it's got that little teeny tiny plug on it, then you should plug it into the slot that matches it. Otherwise, what you're doing is you're wasting the other by 16 slot and reducing it down to whatever the speed is of the USB card is going to use. It's not going to run any faster. You'd have to change the connector out to give it more lanes. So it's not going to make your USB devices any faster if your USB devices aren't USB 3.2 Gen 2. In all likelihood, even if they say that they are, in many cases they're just referring to the fact that they can connect, not necessarily referring to the speed. Speed has got to be on. USB speeds will be relevant to the slowest part of what's in the USB chain. So I guess the question for me would be, what is it you're trying to accomplish? Sometimes customers come in with questions, but if I don't understand what your goal is, what the problem is you're trying to solve, I don't know the right answer to give you to your question because I'm not quite sure what you're trying to accomplish. If I have a mechanical USB hard drive, it won't run any faster than a USB 3.2, 3.1, 3.0, Gen 1, Gen 2. It's not going to run any faster. I've seen people put in gigabit networking cards into older computers because they want their internet to go faster, when that has absolutely nothing to do with their internet speed. So as a computer tech, one of the things you learn to do is when people present you with questions, you have to train yourself on how to get to what the customer wants, rather than having the customer ask you 8 million questions, because each time you answer it, it leads to more questions. It's a long, exhausting, and can be frustrating period of time. Versus if the customer says, I've got this super fast USB 3.2 Gen 2 drive and I want to move a ton of data to it on a regular basis. What would be a good way for me to accomplish that since my motherboard only has USB 3.1? Then I would give you a completely different answer. Will wants to know how to order a computer from me. Will you send me an email? You have to be within the United States. I cannot ship outside of the United States. And you need to tell me what your budget is and what you plan to use the computer for. Give me some idea of, are you looking for something portable? Are you looking for something with RGB and lights and a case window? It's like a showpiece. Are you looking for something practical and budget oriented? Is money not the object and you want the most amount of power, or you want the most amount of storage? How are you going to use the computer, and how do you foresee you're going to use the computer in the future? That can help me determine if your budget is realistic to what it is that you want to have built. So it all starts with just that email. Kerry@kerryholzman.com. Wilmer says, I bought the Silverstone T16 unit you showed the other day. I put an Intel 660p in it. I got a USB card with a USB Type-C to hook it to. Yeah, oh, that's great. Yeah, you can fully take advantage of, 500 megabytes a second or something. Oystein contributes 50 Norwegian krona. Thank you, Oystein. Appreciate you watching us from Norway. Michael Maggs contributes £2, says, I really enjoy your streams, Carrie. Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Lawn Dog says, the customer wants you personally to build the computer, and if I were him, I'd want you to sign it. I'd want you to sign the computer somewhere. Yeah, customers sometimes ask me to do that. I'm happy to do that. We don't do that on business machines because it's not professional to have a business with graffiti on the computer. But yeah, a home user wants me to sign their computer. I mean, if a business owner wanted me to, I would, but I've never had a business owner ask that. Wesley himself says, good to set. Netherlands evening. Welcome in. Do I still have case badges? You can go to carrieholzman.com and check to see if they're still in stock. Carrie, what do you load to a new machine outside of Windows? Usually it's just a matter of configuring Windows, installing the latest drivers, all the updates, making sure it's activated. I'll use the Uncle Carrie's Windows 10 optimizer and put on the free VLC media player. That's it, unless customers want Microsoft Office or they provide me with any other software they want me to install while I've got it. But other than that, that's all I do. And that's about 3 to 4 hours of work of installing all the updates and cleaning up Windows and tuning Windows and adding all the drivers, et cetera, et cetera. It's about a 3 or 4 hour process after the machine is built to prepping it. If they want, malware bytes on there, I'll put it on there for them. But that's all by request. That's not standard. What standard is that the machine is updated and ready to rock and roll. It's activated and updated in every way, shape, and form of the definition of updating. Drivers, the OS, all of it. So when the customer gets it, they can just plug it in and start using it and put in whatever software they want. Harold says, I would think if you sold computers, you would have a sticker installed with serial numbers. No, serial numbers are recorded from the parts themselves and are part of the invoice that I keep track of for my clients. I don't want to put any stickers of my own on here, no. Now, if I was building 1,000 computers a day like Dell, you'd have to have some sort of a way to inventory that amount of assets, but I don't build that many computers, so I don't have to do the things that there's a scale that I'm at that a home user isn't at. I might build 10, 20 computers a month now, or repair or upgrade. Some of the computers that I see here that I upgrade are kind of a mixed match of computers like this. This is the customer's power supply. This is the customer's case. This is the customer's DVD. It's not mine to record the serial numbers. I have no interest in recording the serial numbers of things I'm not held accountable for. And I'm also not dealing with just anybody. If I get a vibe from somebody that's not good, I just won't work with them. If I suspect that this person's up to something, I'm not going to waste my time. If somebody does attempt a type of fraud where they've swapped something out, they could easily pull a sticker and change that out too. That's not going to stop fraud from occurring. Might make you feel better, but when it comes to a larger scale of building hundreds or thousands of computers, in the same time frame, obviously you need a way to keep track of all that inventory and to make sure that, since you are literally selling to thieves and scam artists, you have to have policies and procedures in place that your employees understand how to deal with that, and how to acknowledge it, recognize it, and how to process it. I don't have any employees, so everything comes through me. I know what I sold, and I know what my serial numbers are. So it's never been a problem. Do I store specific drivers in a master folder? 20 years, 30 years ago I did. Today the internet is my master folder. Drivers are constantly updated. And by keeping a folder with drivers in it, you're doing yourself a major disservice, and you're doing your customer a major disservice. How do you know when that driver's been updated? You could have been using the same driver for 6 months. That driver could have been updated 3 times by now. I think it's irresponsible and foolish to behave as though it's 1999 in your processes and procedures when the internet is right there and can make sure that you always have the latest available for free, no cost. Just download it and install it. The internet is your library, and to ignore it and create your own, it's very backwards. It's very, it's like you're turning down modern technology to keep doing something an old-fashioned way, which negates the whole point of the technology. It's very catch-22 and hypocritical to sit there and say you're building computers and you're taking care of your clients, when in fact you're not doing the clients the best work you could do, and you're probably working harder by keeping a system of organization, of being able to locate drivers. Since I'm building 4 different generations of Intel any given day, sometimes Threadripper, sometimes Xeon, and then there's the whole AMD family. There's different sound cards, different network cards. Each one updates drivers fairly regularly. We're holding on to drivers. Doesn't make any sense. Again, 20 years ago, that's one thing. But today, that is the internet. Bob Connor says, did I miss you acknowledging my contribution? No, I didn't see it, Bob. Let me see. What did I miss? There was Oystein. Where is Bob Connors? Sarge Tech with a $2 contribution says, thank you, Kerry. Thanks, Sarge Tech. I don't see anything from Bob. I don't know how long ago you did it, but my chat window won't scroll back further than, what's the last contribution I see here? I see Bob Connors saying hello to somebody. He's saying hello, Randy Reed and Sarge Tech. Hope all is well. That's as high up as I can go in the chat. So if you contributed before that, I'm sorry I didn't see it. What did you contribute, Bob? Maori with $5 says, what's your opinion on Gamers Nexus and the Newegg scam issue? Oh, I think that Gamers Nexus is doing the right thing and calling out Newegg. Wilby contributes $5. Thank you for that. Is it possible to revive a Sony Vaio 2007? Depends what's wrong with it and how much money you're willing to spend and how much time you're willing to spend and what you're going to use it for. If it's a computer that you're just looking for something to do and you don't really care, have at it. You know, maybe it's a good time to learn Linux and throw it on there. If you want to try and put Windows 10 on something like that from 2007, it might just give you something to do, but it's certainly nothing anybody would ever get paid to do. Bob says, I sent you $10. Oh, a late fee. Oh, thank you, Bob. I'm sorry I missed it. Other questions I can answer for you? Let me grab a Gatorade while I'm waiting. Michael Maggs contributed £2, says, I really enjoy your streams, Carrie. Thank you. Well, thank you. Thanks for supporting the channel. And I don't see anything beyond Oystein's contribution, so I've called out everything that's in there. But if you've contributed and I did not acknowledge you, please let me know, because like I said, the chat only goes up to basically Oystein's contribution, and whatever was given before that, if I didn't shout it out, I can't see it now. Ron's asking, how are the pups? Pups are doing well. Yeah, I was just over there last week, and Lyle was in the mood to play, so we played a little bit. And $5 from Bob. He says, here's $5 for your late fee. Fair enough, Bob. Isn't that supposed to come out of my wallet? Raj D with £5 contribution. Thanks, Raj. Wesley says, when I have to install Windows 10 on a whole batch of PCs, I'll do it using a Windows deployment server that has the drivers and eventually extra software on it updated every month. Yes, so when I worked in corporate America, we had that policy and procedure in place. As a self-employed computer technician, I very rarely work on the same systems. So it would take me more time to create and test a deployment disk, or setting it up where it would just boot off the network and start doing an image restoration. It doesn't make any sense at my scale. So, yeah, when I'm getting paid by the hour, I love to do stuff like that because it's a huge waste of time. And it's something that unless you're doing enough computers, I have personally found that creating a deployment like that, it's very, very time consuming to create it and test it, and then you have to keep it updated. Versus if you just do each computer individually, you have to be doing so many computers that the deployment tool, the investment of time and testing makes sense. In my business model, I don't deal with those kind of numbers. If I was Dell or HP, or if I was working, if I was back at Intel and we were deploying computers out to the employees, then of course, having an image or a deployment of Windows makes sense at that scale. But for most home users and for most people that work in small businesses, it is a complete and utter waste of time. You'll spend more time making that than you will using it in those circumstances. Rakshit Patel contributes $4.99. Says, hey, Carrie, hope everything is going well with you. Hey, Rakshit, thank you. A Wait contributes $20. Appreciate your support. Let's make sure you're a moderator in here. Sam Van Thiel says, do you use any software that makes sure all the computers run Windows updates, freeware, or other maintenance tasks? I've been working with computers since the 1980s. And if there's one lesson that I have learned in that time, it is to never, ever trust automation. Therefore, the software that I use is my brain, and the tools I use are my hands. I will manually inspect each computer to ensure that the Windows updates are applied, to ensure that any software they're using is updated, and to ensure that the antivirus and security and firewall and all of those settings have been personally checked by me, a human being with experience and knowledge, instead of trusting an automated piece of software. But that's just, again, from my experience. The one thing I have learned, and the lesson that has stayed with me, is that computers don't always work the way they're supposed to. And there are often updates that are different than other updates that the software cannot even acknowledge exists. So it can't make you aware of it because it's a different kind of an update. And the software itself that you're using to update is another piece of software that you have to update. So for me, and again, if we're looking at a scale of a corporation with thousands of computers, my way is not a practical way of handling that. So it all depends at scale. I'm a small businessman, and I deal with small and medium-sized companies. So I put hands on every single computer personally to investigate by hand and using my brain that things are as they should be. A piece of software that actually worked, that never made mistakes, would be wonderful, but I've never seen that software. We haven't evolved the computers to that point yet, unfortunately. And I think if you put that much trust into it, it's just a matter of time before the consequences will come back to haunt you. If you're getting paid to maintain computers and then you are offloading that into some automated process that you're not auditing, it's just a matter of time before that's going to backfire on you. Blackwatch contributes $2 Canadian. Thank you, Blackwatch. And Bill Binder with £2 says, is there going to be a Tech Vets anytime soon? I don't have anything scheduled right now. I'm trying to get caught up with some work here, and Mike has been sick, but it hasn't pod faded or anything. We just both have been distracted with other projects. So nothing is scheduled. Other technical questions? Michael Dane says, I just gave away my 90th computer, this time to a veteran's family in my area for them to surf and enjoy the internet. You're the man, Michael. And another 50 krona, Norwegian krona from Oystein. Are there any negative aspects, he asks, to activating TPM that you know of? Oh, well, of course. Data recovery, primarily. If somebody were to activate the TPM and then had, say, the motherboard died, and you want to be able to retrieve the data off of that, it could add to a level of complexity that may result in the data not being retrievable. So I don't have a lot of experience with this, and data recovery isn't my cup of tea. It's not my specialty, and you should always have backups. I don't have any customers where we enable TPM. It can slow the machine down. It's putting a form of encryption on it, and I'm very reluctant to enter into that type of security. I think we're much better off password protecting what's important to us and having a good antivirus solution that's always updated and always having offsite backups that are updated regularly in order to minimize any potential losses. But it depends on the client. Some clients have to have TPM. I don't work for those clients. If a client were to say to me, we're interested in hiring you and we need FINRA compliance, I don't have any certifications or even any experience in FINRA compliance, I wouldn't be the right guy for the job. So I wouldn't take the job. John Yasuda contributes $15. He says, hey, Kerry, good stream as usual, my friend. Enjoy some pizza on me. Thank you, John. I think I might just do that. Will there be a live stream at Studio A anytime at all? I do have Studio A is still in existence. However, other work is being done out of there, and that work has to stop for my work to start. They both can't happen at the same time. There's too much noise and overlap. So if there's an opportunity where Studio A is going to be available, then I'll certainly shoot from there. That's why I left all the equipment over there. But nothing's planned. Bob Connor says, why does my registry show a product key for Microsoft Office when it is not installed on my computer? No idea. Good question. Michael Dane says, we miss your furry family members. How are they doing? Yeah, they're good. Everybody's good. Thank you for asking. And Randy G contributes 20 bucks. Hey, thank you, Randy. Make sure Randy's blue in here. So I have a couple other videos I want to make today, and in a perfect world, I would just make one long video and do each item and then edit that and then re-upload it and retitle it. But I never seem to have the time to do the editing. So what I prefer to do is, since this subject matter has been covered, I want to move on to the next subject, which will mean stopping or ending this video and then creating another live stream with a new topic. And then when that one's done, and repeat that as I get through some of the things I need to get done today. But I just thought it's been a while since we did the whole Q&A thing, and I just thought we'd take a few minutes. It seems to be dying down. So unless anybody else has any more questions, we'll wrap it up. Ronnie wants to know if an 8th Gen i7 is worth keeping for another 5 years. It's really up to you. Nobody can tell you what something is worth to you. They can tell you what it's worth to somebody else. And to somebody else, that answer could be absolutely, or it could be absolutely not. There is no objective answer. It's only subjective, and it's whatever you see it to be. Can the cops crack TPM? Why are you asking? That's a weird question. Why do you want to know that? Tyrone says, what do you think about these new SSD NVMe drives? All NVMe drives are SSD, so I don't know what you're referring to. You'll have to be more specific with a make and model. Stuart Barrett contributes £5. It says, I'm building an AMD 1800X and 16 gigs of RAM for my niece for video photo editing. Is it a good base to start? No, it's horrible. An 1800 is the bottom of the barrel. It is, for video editing, you're going to need the most amount of power that you can possibly afford. And even that won't be enough. This is a Core i9 9900KS with 64 gigs of RAM, a Samsung 970 EVO, 2 terabyte storage drive, and a 3080 graphics card. And that's not enough for video editing. It gets it done, but it takes a while. So in general, you want a Ryzen 7 or 9 series. You're going to want a discrete graphics card, and you're going to want a minimum of 32 gigs of RAM. But it will do video editing. It's going to be painfully slow. It also depends on what you're editing. If you're editing 1080, 4K, 8K, and how long of a video you're making and how many edits, transitions, or effects you're putting into that video. It will do it no matter what, but it might take 20 hours to render it out, whereas a higher end machine will do it in 2 minutes. There's a massive difference in the amount of time. So there's not a one size fits all design factor for video editing, because people do different kinds of video editing. Some people want to use chroma key and layering, and other people are making little 15-second, TikTok videos, whatever. So there is no generic answer I can give you other than to let you know that I would never consider anything under a Ryzen 7 or an Intel i7. Wouldn't even enter my mind to use that for video editing because of how time consuming it would be. Basscatcher says, when I load in my computer boots to fan errors and goes to a boot menu. Where should I start to see which fan is causing the error? Well, you can just unplug one fan from your motherboard when the computer's off, then turn the computer on and see if the error comes up. If the error comes up, turn the computer back off, unplug the next fan, turn the computer back on, until you find the fan that you're unplugging that makes the error go away, and you've solved your problem. Just a process of elimination. You take out what's working, you determine what is working, and what it leaves you with is what isn't working. Carrie, do you have any idea why it is no longer possible to upgrade from Windows 21H1? I don't know what you're talking about. I just upgraded Windows 21H1 to 21H2 yesterday, so there's no problem with upgrading. I have no idea what your problem, what your problem is that you're describing, but it seems to be either a misunderstanding on your part or a unique problem that's only affecting you. Do you have any evidence anywhere of other people claiming that you can't upgrade 21H1? Or did you just conclude that because you're having this problem once, everybody's having it everywhere? Download the Windows 10 Download Assistant, Update Assistant, and it'll put Windows 21H2 on there for you. Victor says, motherboards don't care about regular system fans. Oh, that's not true at all. Absolutely a false statement. Some motherboards absolutely do care. So bear in mind when you're getting information from the internet, and especially from strangers, that may have limited experience, or they might be toying with you and they know what they're saying is false, or they've come to a conclusion based on a limited experience they have with a specific set of hardware and don't actually have a wider range of experience with a number of motherboards, and therefore, because they're not familiar with the problem, they would have you believe they have falsely concluded that such a problem doesn't exist because they didn't see it. So be careful of other answers you get online. Terrell says a Dell XPS was left to me. Is it worth upgrading? A Dell XPS has been made for what, 12, 15 years? So it's not like saying, hey, somebody left me a Ford Taurus. Is it worth fixing? I don't know. What year is it? What condition is it in? How much are you willing to put into it? What do you determine something worth being versus something not worth having? How do you make that decision? Because you're the only one who could make that decision. Nobody can tell you what something is worth to you. That would mean anything, right? I throw stuff out all the time. I take like old stuff that won't fit in the garbage can. I put it out at the curb. It is absolutely worthless junk to me. And inevitably, somebody will drive down the block, stop their truck, pick up what I'm throwing away because they see value in it that I don't see. Maybe it's a broken bookshelf. I don't want to waste time trying to fix it. It's particle board, it's cheap, it's lived its life. It's too big to throw in the trash can. I put it out at the curb. Somebody goes, I'm going to do something with that. And they pick it up and they put it in the back of their truck and they drive off. So here you are going, is it worth fixing this bookshelf? I say, absolutely not. Put it in the trash can. And the person picking it up, putting it in the truck goes, don't listen to that guy. This thing's awesome. You know, I could make a desk out of this. I can easily fix this with the tools and experience I have. Somebody else might say, Well, if I had tools and experience and knew how to fix it, I probably would. But since I don't, what choice do I have? So you get all these different answers to the same question based on the individual's perspective of value. And nobody can tell you what your value of anything is. That's something only you know. So if you want to fix it up, fix it up. If you think it's a waste of money, you think it's a waste of money. I don't know what to tell you. Victor says he's never seen an off-the-shelf motherboard care if a system fan is connected or not. Depends on how you've configured the BIOS. Every board I've seen, every board you see me work on has that feature. You can absolutely choose to ignore the fan or report the fan for any fan header on the board in the BIOS. It's a standard. In fact, I can't say I've seen it on an OEM board, but when you're building your own system, all these motherboards have all those details in the BIOS, and whether or not you wish to turn on alerts or warnings regarding system failures, or you want to monitor the speed, you just have to turn that on in the BIOS on a standard motherboard. OEMs, I don't know. But on these boards, it's always existed as far back as I can remember since the 3-pin fan. Ricky B says, I bought a new office chair for my wife. I put the old one next to the trash cans on trash day, and it was gone before the trash man arrived. That's what I'm saying. One person's trash is another person's treasure. Terrell Johnson contributes $5. Hey, thank you, Terrell. Mike Vision says, hello, Kerry. Last week, a customer wanted me to fix an HP Pro 3500 series. I told him just put it to bed and build him a 9th-gen system instead with their budget. Stuart Barrett contributes £5. He says, thanks, your help is very much appreciated. Well, thank you, Stuart. Taco says, if I had a copy of Old Shep by Walter Brennan on my TPM hard drive, could the cops find it? Of course. I don't even know what your reference point is, though. You should always assume the cops are going to find something. If you are hiding something that is illegal or you're doing something that is illegal, there's a couple recently that were accused of money laundering $5.6 billion worth of Bitcoin. They had about 90,000 stolen Bitcoins. And they were using like Monero, which is supposed to be, the favorite of thieves because there's no public record of the blockchain. And yet, those people were busted. So if you just Google 5.6 billion Bitcoin thieves and then hit the news tab, you can read about it. And even on YouTube, they tell you how they were caught in that, what they thought they were doing in layering their transactions, they thought it was hiding them, but it wasn't. So in general, if you get the attention of the police, you're best off destroying anything that you think would get you in trouble. Because if you're going to put something in a secured location, and then there is a subpoena requiring by law to surrender that information to police, the company that you've stored it with will have no choice. So unless you have a lot of money and can afford one heck of a defense attorney, my advice would be simply don't put yourself in that situation. Make better decisions. Mike Visions contributes £5 and says, here's for the tip box. Hey, thank you, Mike, once again. How did they steal the money? Again, just read the news article is what I can tell you. How do people steal crypto? Oh, I don't even have time to talk about all the ways that happens, but you can Google that. I think the first mistake a novice makes in this business is oversimplifying the world around them. There is not a what is this worth to me answer anybody can answer except you. There's no question you can ask me about the value of something to you. That's a question only you can answer. You're oversimplifying things. The world is a very complicated place, and other people live completely different lives, eat food that's different than any food you'll ever eat in your life. They wear clothes you'll never wear. They live in a house you'll never live in. They speak a language you'll never speak. They live a culture that is not yours. And their perspective of the world around them is not like yours. So this first mistake is that other people see the world in the same way you do. Highly unlikely anybody sees the world exactly the way you do, other than maybe your parents and family members. Maybe not even then. The second thing people do is say, well, how does somebody steal crypto? Well, you can steal crypto in an infinite number of ways. There's no one set way, or otherwise wouldn't we just put a stop to it? That's where oversimplification is really hampering somebody's ability to learn. Because what you have to understand first and foremost is there are no limitations to creativity and imagination of thieves and their cleverness to either con people out of money, physically steal it, hack in, use exploits and software, have an insider inside of a workplace that gives them access they wouldn't otherwise have. I mean, I could go on for hours and hours and hours of all the different ways that computers are exploited. And when the data that's exploited happens to represent a financial value, in the case of cryptocurrencies, it's no different than transferring or stealing any other kind of data. Other than if you steal my Word documents, you can't turn around and spend that. You can maybe hold it hostage and tell me I have to pay money to get it back. But if you just get cryptocurrency, there's millions of different ways you can steal it, trick people into it. I don't even know where to begin. James Prezi said, I had a customer call about his computer running slow. Long story short, he had 2 failing mechanical hard disk drives, and I found this out by using the Crystal Disk Info tool that I learned from your channel. Right on, James. What are my thoughts on folding at home? I don't have any thoughts on folding at home. If that's something you want to do, there's a lot of different processes. If you want to use your PC's idle time to help cure cancer or to mine Bitcoin or whatever else the folding at home is doing, search for alien life, I don't have feelings about it one way or the other. It's like asking me, how do I feel about using a computer for, and then whatever you want to use it for. Word processing, broadcasting, editing. I don't have any feelings about it at all. Use the computer for what interests you. Have at it. Any questions? Any other technical questions? Randall says, I don't understand Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. It's no different than money. How do you understand money? If you understand money, then you understand cryptocurrency. It's no different. If tomorrow we all decided $1 wasn't worth anything, you'd have to make arrangements with me to give me something that I would find of value. If we're going to trade for a product or a service that I'm offering, you have to then give me something for me to give you something. Whether you reach in your pocket and you hand me $1 bill, or you reach in your pocket and you hand me some, well, you wouldn't reach in your pocket, but you would hand me a digital token, let's say, that's worth $1, then it's worth $1. If I try to take an American dollar to some countries, they won't accept it. It has no value to them. If I tried to use Bitcoin at some places, some retail places, it may not have value to them. But I can use Bitcoin at places where Bitcoin is accepted. If I have an American Express card, I can't use that where they don't take American Express. It's just another form of currency, and its value is determined by how in demand it is. There's a limited supply of Bitcoin. There's a finite number of Bitcoins. And when they get lost, they're gone forever. And as more and more people use it, the value of it goes up because demand goes up. And the supply then doesn't appear to be so much when more people are using it. So it's a great opportunity for investment, knowing that there's a finite number of Bitcoin, that over time it inevitably will only get bigger. And it could be years, it could be days, it could happen while I'm talking. It can also fall the other way, but it generally always recovers if you're just patient and hold on. Look at where Bitcoin was on this day 10 years ago. And look where it is today. So imagine if you bought several Bitcoins at that price, and then do the math of what those Bitcoins are worth today. Even though Bitcoin has fallen, it's still way, way higher than it once was. And it will likely continue to grow, in my opinion, as more and more people embrace it as a form of payment for services, no differently than the American dollar. You accept it the same, you spend it the same. Leslie says, yeah, it's like I can't pay with dollars in the Netherlands and I can't pay with euros in North America. Perfect example. Terrell wants to know what I would need to create, what would I need to scan old photos and make memory disks for family record. Generally speaking, people don't do that anymore. Disks have kind of gone the way of the dinosaur. For the most part, people are just using a scanner, typically built into their printer, to scan their images and then upload those images to a site where the family can just bring it up on a computer. And each person doesn't need their own disk. The disk gets trashed, the disks won't read, the disks deteriorate over time. You put it up in the cloud, there's no shipping, everybody can see everything the same, and people can even add to their photos to the album, because maybe they have photos you don't have of the family, and it allows it to be more of a collaborative effort. But the idea of making a disc and doing that, that's very, very old, and for the most part, it's just not done anymore. There used to be companies, and they're probably still out there, that will scan your images and put them on a disc for you. That was kind of a thing in the 90s, but not for about the last 20 years. And I'm sure there's probably a couple places still around that do it, but everything's online now. Brian says, especially when crypto can't be traced. All crypto can be traced. That's the point I was just making. People often think it can't be traced, but it actually can. And if you read the news story about this couple that had this $5.6 billion worth of Bitcoin, they thought like you. They thought they understood it. They thought we are superior in our knowledge of cryptocurrency compared to most people. They're going to jail for probably 25 years. So you just might not really have the full, you're oversimplifying the world around you. It's something people seem to do with something they don't understand. They do one of two things that I'm witnessing a lot here on YouTube. They say, they take the limited grasp and understanding they have of it, and then they conclude in an oversimplified way that this or that is an absolute. Very few things in life are absolute except death and taxes. That's as true now as it was when that expression was made up. The other thing people do is they shut down entirely. The minute you say cryptocurrency or some subject matter which they personally find above them, like there's no way I can ever attempt to understand this, so I'm not even going to try. Just don't even bring it up around me. I tend to see those two attitudes most often in my line of work, particularly from people who have the questions. And they don't realize that the questions that they're asking are very, very complex and that they have an oversimplified view of it. So the best thing you can do is, if you actually have an interest in it, is to educate yourself on it. And there's nothing I can do to educate you on it. We'd be here for weeks. But you can study on your own time and learn about the different blockchains and the different cryptocurrencies and how all that works together, along with reading news articles about the people who thought that they weren't able to get traced and how they were traced, so that you can have a bigger picture rather than you're looking through a little hole and you're telling me how big the world is. But you haven't opened both eyes and seen it like this. You have no idea what you're really looking at. So I would encourage your own self-education if you want to be able to have an opinion on it that actually comes from an informed and educated perspective. Or if you're not willing to do that, then don't have an opinion on it, because you're providing completely false information based on a lack of in-depth understanding of what it is. And then what that does is it's planting seeds to the person you're talking to who doesn't know any better, who's assuming that you're talking with authority and therefore what you have to say is accurate, when in fact what you have to say is not accurate. But they don't know any better. So then they're going to ask me and have to tell them, and now it's harder to teach them because they already thought it was something else. I would rather train somebody who's got no experience than to try and train somebody who's got the wrong experience. People with the wrong experience are nightmares to train. They take way too long. They're way too skeptical. They're not quite sure what the truth is anymore. I can't be bothered with people. I just don't have time. It's so frustrating that I can do something in 2 seconds, but I have to explain it to somebody for 2 hours. It's not worth it to me unless they're paying me for my time. But this is the battle of information now, is that there's so much false information out there. People are no longer able to tell the difference anymore. And if you can't tell the difference, maybe don't have an opinion. Don't enter into that dialogue, because unless it's a question, your statements lack the full understanding of the subject matter and are conflating and confusing information to other innocents that are participating in the chat or in the forum that you're having these discussions. So it doesn't really benefit anybody to do that. I don't see an upside to it. Is Windows antivirus good? Yeah, that's fine. But I would use Malwarebytes or some secondary malware tool. It's good to have a piece of anti-malware and your antivirus. All of my clients that I service use Windows antivirus along with a paid annual subscription to Malwarebytes. And I haven't had to deal with viruses about 2 years now. We haven't had a single virus. But I don't just rely on Malwarebytes, and I don't just rely on Windows antivirus. Those two working together seem to be a very good combination for me and my clients. No antivirus protects you 100%. You can't just go out and buy a safe car and then think, well, I don't have to worry about driving safely. The car isn't going to guarantee that you won't be in an accident that doesn't hurt or kill you, regardless of how safe they say the car is. You still have to make wise decisions behind the wheel and learn how to drive in a responsible manner. So the antivirus is just there in case you make a mistake. Ideally, it'll catch it, but it won't always. The best antivirus and the best anti-malware are the decisions you're making every time you click your mouse or click your keyboard. And when you make a bad decision, that's when your antivirus or malware will hopefully kick in and acknowledge it and let you know you're trying to go to a site that's trying to steal your identity, or you're trying to download a file that has a virus. You've made a bad decision. That's what antivirus and malware alerts. They're informing you you're making a bad decision. And if you make better decisions, your reliance on antivirus and malware will be significantly reduced, as long as you always make sure all of your software and your operating system are always updated. Carrie, is there a simple way to check the status of a BIOS battery on a laptop motherboard? There's only one way to test the battery. You have to remove the battery from whatever circuit it's in and put it on a battery tester. And on some laptops, that's an easy thing, and on other laptops, you got to tear the whole thing down. So there's not any one blanket simple way. You cannot test a battery in a circuit. There's no such thing. The battery has to be removed, then placed on a tester. There's no other way to test a battery, regardless of what kind of battery it is or where it's located. Hey, there's Remus Computer Solutions. He says he's had a string of bad luck with bad parts. Yeah, what's been going on? What are some of the bad parts you've been dealing with? Motherboards? RAM? Is a free antivirus good to use? Well, let's say you use a free antivirus and you get infected. What are you going to do? The antivirus company holds no liability. Anything you get for free, you should have zero expectations of, because what are the consequences of the free thing not delivering on its promise? If you're using Gmail and Gmail goes down and you can't access email and you were using it for free, there's nobody you can call and complain to. If you're using a free antivirus and your identity gets stolen, there's no compensation, there's no insurance, there's nobody you can call and ask for help. It's free. If you want to take what's free, understand you're getting something free. And by free, what I mean is they are going to spy on you because that's how they pay for the product. When you get something for free, you are the product. And if you're willing to trade your privacy for something for free, have at it. But understand you'll have no technical support. And if the product lets you down, if it causes a computer crash, if it causes data loss, or if it allows a virus into the system, there's no consequences to the manufacturer. It's just your consequences that you'll have to deal with at your own time and expense. So if you want to go free, but understand there's a difference. You get what you pay for. So if you're paying nothing, you'll get nothing. At least in terms of support or help in the case that you might need it. And the level of protection. There's just nobody you can complain to and nobody who can assist you, because who would be paying those people to answer the phone? Who's paying for the phone? Who's paying for their time to answer your question? It's free. No guarantee, no warranty, no liability, no consequences to the creator. It's your decision. If there's free sushi at the airport, at the gas station, and you want to eat it and you get sick, that's on you, man. Can you not trust Microsoft? Who you trust is your business, and whatever you determine to be worthy of your trust is a decision that each of us will make ourselves. Again, this oversimplification is a very big red flag that you only see the world through your eyes and you have no consideration for other people's definitions of privacy or trust. I can guarantee you there would be very few of us in this room who would agree to trust the same entity. For as many of us will trust it, there will be an equal number who don't. Neither of us are wrong. Bob Connor says, if the BIOS battery goes dead, what symptoms does the computer display, and will it do any harm before a new battery is installed? Bob, there is no one symptom all computers display when a BIOS battery goes bad. Again, we're right back to oversimplifying. There is not any one particular symptom that all computers display. Some computers won't turn on. They simply won't power up if the battery's bad. Other computers, they won't maintain the date or the time. Every time you turn them on, they'll say your BIOS settings have changed, or a new CPU was detected, or new RAM was detected. Other systems, like a laptop that's got a battery that's always got a charge on it, doesn't necessarily rely on that little button cell battery in the laptop, since the main battery is providing the power to keep all the information in the BIOS. So if the battery's been removed in a laptop, and if the battery in the laptop is 6, 7, 8 years old and it's dead, then when you go to power the laptop on, you get error messages on your boot screen. It would be common but not guaranteed. So it depends on what the system is, the era in which it was made, and how it was designed. But at the end of the day, a bad battery is a bad battery, and the only way to know what's causing the error messages is to diagnose the machine. I don't automatically jump to battery for the sake of I've got nothing else going on. There's a series of diagnostic steps that takes me there. And then based on what the symptoms are, and based on what I've already tried, then it leads me to the battery. That's all. Hey, there's Marty Yoel. Marty contributes $20, says hello, Carrie and chat. Good to see you. Yeah, if there was one sort of theme to today's show, it appears to be the oversimplification of technology, and that your experience with a particular piece of hardware is somehow going to be universal across all hardware. It simply isn't the case unless we're dealing with like Apple. If you want everything to be cookie cutter and the same, and for everybody to have the same thing, it's sort of a communist, we all get the same thing, then you want Apple because they're all the same. And Apple controls it, and Apple will control what you have. No different than communism. Everybody gets the same. If you like the individuality that freedom brings you, then the PC is not only more dangerous, but there's more competition, which means there's reduced pricing, but it also means there's different engineering designs so that one company doesn't sue the other for stealing their ideas. So how hardware reacts to particular situations is based on the manufacturer. And since Apple is the only manufacturer of Apple, there are nobody else. And since you can't really customize an Apple computer, not in the same way that you can customize a PC, essentially in the world of Apple, you can have absolutes, and you can have this, again, communistic way of thinking that everything is the same and everybody gets the same and everything is always the same. If you want to live that way, Apple would be a better choice for you. But if you prefer the individuality of designing your own computer and being able to upgrade that computer in any way that you want to, including ways that are dangerous, impractical, or just plain stupid, the PC allows for that. Even if it's dangerous, Apple does not. Because of that, because of the variety and the millions and millions and millions of potential variables that make up any computer, I very rarely see the same hardware twice. So it's not as though there is a specific behavior that always is the same when a specific part goes out, unless those parts are all made by the same manufacturer. Let's go to the chat to see if anybody has any other technical questions that I can answer for them. And then otherwise, we'll just go ahead and wrap up this video so I can move on to doing the next one. Monty UL contributes $10. He says, Happy Valentine's Day. Hey, Monty, happy Valentine's Day to you. Also, happy SAD, Singles Awareness Day, SAD. Randall says he's celebrating SAD. Do I have a build video for my streaming PC? Yeah, this is my birthday build. I think if you just search my channel for the word birthday, you'll see it in there. Andy says there's been a few updates for Windows 11 now. Could it be considered a viable time to update? Oh, I don't know why we're talking about this. I thought I covered it. What do you want Windows 11 for? Patrick Manny says a 12th gen Intel needs Windows 11 to use P and E cores. Well, Windows 10 runs just fine on the 12th gen as well. But if you want to eke out every ounce of performance from a 12th gen, you would want Windows 11. I agree. How many people here in the chat room have a 12th gen Intel chip? We've got, what, 484 people watching. So out of the 484 people, let me know if you're using a 12th gen chip. Tim Too Much says he's got a 12900K, so there's one person. So one person out of 484, two people, well, somebody's got a 12700, two people out of 484. Cora says he's got one. There's three people. Now, how many people have Windows 11 in the chat room? And welcome to the insanity of the world that we live in. If the only real good reason to upgrade to Windows 11 is efficiency in a 12th generation Intel chip, and three people out of 484 people have a 12th, but the rest of you don't, then why do so many more of you have Windows 11? Why did you put Windows 11 on your computer? My only theory is that you were just bored and had nothing else to do. And that's okay, but it's a far cry from recommending other people are also bored and should waste their time with this. Unless there is a return on investment, that would make sense on it. And there will be, but it just isn't there yet. Not for most people. And that's my point I've been trying to make this whole time. And I think maybe that'll be the way I need to start answering questions now, is by leading you to your own answers, by putting you in my shoes, and so you'll get a better idea of what I'm hearing. Sometimes I hear things that I get upset about, the attitude or the oversimplistic attitude of one-size-fits-all blanket statements. And then when it's attempted to be justified, when you dig a little deeper, you find out that they don't even have that justification. They're talking about somebody else. It's maddening, as though those other people can't speak for themselves. You have to speak on their behalf. I find it quite disturbing as a human behavior. But I think the best way to deal with it from this point forward, if I remember, is to start asking more questions from the people making those kind of statements, so that everybody else can understand why I react the way I do. There's nothing wrong with Windows 11. There's no reason to avoid it, but there's also no reason to chase after it. Not yet. Unless, of course, you do want to take advantage of your 12th gen chip to its maximum potential. But you'd be hard pressed to really notice much of a difference going from Windows 10 to Windows 11 on a 12th gen, really. It depends on the types of software and the way that you use your computer. Most end users wouldn't see any difference. And I'm speaking as a professional computer technician. So I just think that there will be a day where I will be recommending Windows 11, but it's way too early, and there's no reason for me to do that. It just doesn't make any sense. It's just some people always have to have this. They're just easily mind controlled through marketing. It's all just if you wonder the power of modern marketing and the psychological effects that are being used, all you need to do is look at the fanboys for anything. All fanboys are a result of being manipulated by marketing. You know, when you're a computer technician, you don't care if something's AMD or Intel. You're just there to work. You're there to earn money. You're there to get a job done. You're not there to have personal, emotional feelings about the equipment. It's just equipment. People who take sides, they're just playing into the marketing game. So, and that's fine if you want to do that. I just would hope people are a little more self-aware of they're being conditioned and they're being manipulated. And if you're okay with it, then that's your choice. But if you don't realize what you're doing is being controlled by marketing companies, maybe just take a minute and really analyze why you have an emotional connection to something that you don't have a financial investment in. If you're not a stockholder with Intel or AMD, what difference does it make what anybody else buys? What business is it of yours? So that's just the power of marketing, my friends. That's how good they are. They're very, very good. Speaking of which, pretty good Super Bowl commercials this year. I was very impressed. And a good game. Who knew they could have a good Super Bowl? But it was good because it was a long time coming. To have a couple teams we haven't seen play in the Super Bowl, that was refreshing. To have commercials that were actually funny, that was refreshing. And to have a good game, that was refreshing. So I was glad to see that. But yeah, you know, a lot of times the commercials are all the buzz, you know, water cooler talk at the workplace. And it's just how manipulative marketing can be. There is a deep psychological component to most marketing that you would have no idea that you're being manipulated. They're so clever in how they do it. What is the thing they said? Being diplomatic is telling somebody to go to hell, and they'll enjoy the trip. It's something along those lines. I don't know. much a fan of just critical thinking, of seeing things for what they are, not what somebody says they are. If that makes any sense to you? I don't really care what somebody thinks about something else unless I'm looking to them for approval. Much of the disappointment in my life, much of the frustration in my life, came from not getting people's approval. And if you can learn to let that go so that you don't have to get approval to fit in, or you don't have to get approval to feel like you're in the group or you're good enough to belong, you're good enough to belong, in my opinion, because you say you are. Not because of what you own, not because of what you know or who you know, but because you're just a genuinely nice person and preferably open-minded and not punitive and not, fixated on absolutes. For me, my life got much, much better when I learned how to stop seeking others' approval. Those other people have no value to me. If they don't see value in me, I don't see value in them. I give what I get. And when people want to behave that way, I'm happy to not associate with them rather than join in to be included. I would rather not be included. I would rather be included where my individuality is celebrated and valued for what it is, rather than being manipulated into becoming a sheep, a thoughtless, mindless sheep, and doing what everybody else is doing or following the trends of marketing and fads, clothing fads, all that stuff. I'm the wrong guy for that. I'm not the kind of person that goes to a Gucci store or a Michael Kors store. That stuff means nothing to me. I'm practical. Is there some reason why this name brand purse or watch is better? Is the watch more accurate? Does it tell time better? Is that why I want a Rolex? Or is what I'm doing is trying to get people to like me because I have the impression that I have money, and so therefore they want to be my friend? I don't want friends like that. I don't want people liking me for what I have or for who I know. You like me or you don't like me, that's it. And either way, I'm okay with it. I'm not disappointed. It is what it is. So this idea of trying to impress people, boy, I'll tell you what, life was really, really hard while I was trying to impress people. Life got so much better when I learned how to stop. So much better. I wouldn't wish anybody to go through that futile task of impressing people who you don't even know, and if you actually got to know them, you probably wouldn't even like them. Buy what you like because you like it, because you want it. You don't need anybody else to tell you it's a smart thing or a dumb thing. You don't need anybody else to tell you it's a waste of money or a good investment. That is a sole decision for you and you alone to make, and you will live with the consequences, whether they're good or bad. And it's nobody else's business. I used to have some trouble in the computer repair business where somebody would challenge me, and then I would get into an argument to prove my point. And I have found that even when you win, you still lose, because then you come off as arrogant or cocky or full of yourself or narcissistic. And if you lose, you still lose, right? If you fail to make your point where they can acknowledge your point of view and perspective, then it just completely validates their feelings that you have no value. So if somebody doesn't think I have value, I'm okay with it. That's fine. I don't need somebody else's approval. There's a lot of people on this planet. I don't have to get along with everybody. I don't have to like everybody, and everybody doesn't have to like me. It's a big, big planet. So you can walk far away. We never have to see each other again. Or we can become friends if we enjoy each other's company. But Just be who you are. That's my best advice. And don't worry about what anybody else thinks. So unless you're causing harm to people, that's a different story. But if your intention is to be friendly and kind and helpful, and that's seen as an arrogant and annoying and know-it-all, just avoid those people and stick to the people who appreciate your values. Don't try to convince people of your value. It's a big waste of time. It's just not worth it. Too much effort to people who don't matter. You're giving them more value than they're worth by suggesting their opinion of your value has value. It doesn't. It only has whatever value you give it, and that's a voluntary choice you make. Don't hang out with toxic people, says Arcadian. Yeah, well, to some people, you might be a toxic person. I might be a toxic person. Some people like oil and water. They just don't get along. Don't force it. Go with it. Okay, we don't get along. Write that off. Meet somebody else. There's a lot of wonderful people out there you haven't met yet. Don't let those other people occupy your time and your thoughts while other people that could be your future best friend walked on by without you even noticing them. So in business, I tell people what I do. I give them my rate. I give them an idea how much time it's going to take. If they can find a better rate being done faster and being done correctly the first time, where somebody's not having to keep coming back, hey, give me their name and number. I'll hire them. You know, that's my attitude. If you can find somebody who does a better job faster than me, gets it done right the first time and does it for less than me, you should absolutely hire them. Absolutely. We'll all be happier. I'll be happier not working for somebody like you. You'll be happier having somebody that you believe is more of value, and they'll be happy to have the work. Where's the problem? I think it's great. Zap PC and Audio contributes $5. Hey, thank you, Zap. Hometown Custom PC says, I build $2,000 gaming systems for only $700 with a 3-year full guarantee. So what do you think is a $2,000, how does a $2,000 computer become a $700 computer? It doesn't even make any sense. If you're selling a $700 computer, then it's worth $700. But that's marketing, right? That's somebody who's saying, I'm taking $700 and they're obviously making a profit at it. And they're saying, I could charge $2,000 for this. Well, you could charge $20,000 for it. You can charge whatever you want. Doesn't mean anybody's going to pay you that much. And having a warranty that's 3 years, well, that's great, but who's it backed by? Is it just you? What if you get sick? What if you change your mind? What if your business goes under? What's my warranty worth then? So that's all perfect examples of the manipulation of marketing. Perceived value, manipulation, and the idea that somebody's going to lose money, by selling you $2,000 for $700. I mean, if you can sell me a $2,000 computer for $700, then you should be able to sell me $2,000 for $700. So I'll give you $700 and you give me $2,000. How does that business model work? I'll sign up for it. I'm just not interested in the computer. I'm interested in the $700 for $2,000 offer. It's a pretty scumbaggy thing to do, to come into somebody else's YouTube channel and to promote your business there. That's in direct competition of what the YouTube channel is doing, and to stand on somebody else's stage and to talk to somebody else's audience for your own self-promotion. It's a good way to find yourself kicked out of here. And I wouldn't do business with anybody like that, because if that's the morals and ethics they lack that makes it okay to do that in their head, imagine what they're like if you go buy something from them. Imagine what your experience as a customer is going to be dealing with somebody who has that mentality. So it's spam. People don't like spam, but when they're promoting their own thing, they don't recognize they are spamming. And it's spam. It's unwelcome. And it's really a shame that somebody would stand on someone else's stage and preach to their audience. You can all create your own YouTube channels. It's free. And you can build your own audience and you can say what you want to them. So this is something you have to deal with when you deal with the public, because there's a lot of thoughtless individuals who are so wound up into their own little world that they fail to have a common sense of decency among consideration for others around them. And again, rather than trying to correct the individual's behavior, we just ban them. It's not worth the waste of time. If that's the way they are, we're not going to change them. It's not our job to change them. But be aware this is a problem in the world, and understand that there are people that are worth investing in and there are people that are not worth investing in. And judging somebody's character by their behavior is typically an early indicator, good or bad, of what you can expect from somebody based on their behavior. Chris Johnson contributes $10. Thank you, Chris. Hey, I see Mitch Morrison join us in the chat. Hey, Mitch. Frank M. contributed $10. This is another informative live carry. Thank you. Right on. Thank you. We have a special show coming up for you on Friday, so I hope you'll join us. We will complete the Big Beast build this Friday. I hope. I have to. Time has run out. So it's do or die now. The stress is on. The pressure is on. Get her done. Shamim says, I always enjoy your videos and I always learn something new. Thank you so much, Carrie. Hugs from Sweden. Thank you, Shamim. Sam Van Deel with a €10 contribution said, I just appreciate the work. Thank you, Sam. Appreciate you, my friend. Bill Thorne says, just want to say thank you. Very kind. Thank you. All right, guys, I think we're going to wrap it up for now. My stomach is, I don't know if you can hear it. It's been rumbling. So I think it's time for me to grab a bite, then maybe come back and I'll hopefully be able to stream the next live video in a couple of hours. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see what distractions I get between now and then. I probably have a ton of messages waiting for me. But I do want to say thank you to all of the kind folks we have in our community. Everybody's welcome in this community until you give us a reason. You're given the benefit of the doubt that you're a good person. Until you prove that wrong, everybody's welcome here. So thank you guys so much for your contributions. For the list that I have, which is a partial list, thank you to Michael Maggs and Sarge Tech, Morori and Wilb, Bob Connors, Raj D, Rakshit Patel, A. Waite, Blackwatch, Bill Binder, Oystein and John Yasuda, Randy G, Stuart Barrett, Terrell Johnson, Stuart Barrett again, XRod666, Mike Visions, Barry Klein. Barry Klein contributed $5, says, good afternoon, Carrie. Sans Midge, here's some money for the Tech Busker tip jar. Thank you, guys. Terrell Johnson again, Madi Yoel, thank you as always, and Frank M, Zap PC and Audio, Chris Johnson, and Sam Van Thiel. Thanks, you guys, for supporting the channel and making it possible for me to make more content more often. The last couple of weeks, things have been very, very busy on the business side of things, away from YouTube. With much of the bulk of that taken care of, I'm hoping I can get back to more videos more regularly, because now that I caught up with that backlog, now I've got a backlog here, which is why there may be multiple streams each day this week, time permitting. So lots of content still coming at you. Thank you for watching. Thanks for your support. Thanks for all the kindness. And my friends in blue for moderating the chat and keeping it civil and enforcing the rules from we don't have to endure jerks because of your help. Jerks. We'll see you soon. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.